Hello students, welcome to Speedo Education by Tripti. I hope you are all doing well. Today we are beginning a very interesting chapter called Introduction to History. Whenever we hear the word history, many people think of kings, queens, wars, or remembering dates. But history is much more than that. It is the fascinating story of how human civilization developed over thousands of years. History helps us understand how people lived in the past, what they believed, how they solved problems, and how their discoveries shaped the world we live in today. Every building, every monument, every ancient tool, and every written document tell us something about our ancestors. In this lesson, we will learn what history really means, why it is important, the different sources historians used to study the past, and how people lived during the prehistoric age. We will also explore the three important stages of the Stone Age and revise the chapter with important definitions and questions. So let's begin our journey into the past. What is history? First of all, let's understand what history actually means. The word history comes from the Greek word historia, which means inquiry or knowledge gained through investigation. This means history is not based on imagination or stories alone. Historians carefully investigate evidence before writing about the past. Simply speaking, history is the systematic study of past human events based on evidence. But what kind of event does history study? History tells us about ancient civilization, famous rulers, great discoveries, culture, religions, inventions, trade, wars, and the daily lives of ordinary people. It explains how human society changed over time. One important thing to remember that history is not just about memorizing dates. Dates are only a small part of history. The real purpose of history is to understand why events happen and how they happen and what impact they had on society. For example, when we study Indus Valley civilization, we don't only learn when it existed, we also learn how people built planned cities, traded with other civilizations, and developed advanced drainage systems. These facts help us understand the intelligence and lifestyle of people who lived thousands of years ago. History also connects the past, present, and future. The decisions people made long ago continue to influence our lives today. By studying history, we understand our roots and become more aware of our culture and identity. This is why we can define history as the recorded and studied account of past human events based on evidence and interpretation. Now that we know what history is, let's understand why studying history is so important. Why is history important? Now that we know what history is, let's understand why we should study it. Have you ever wondered why school teach history? Is it only to remember old events? The answer is no. History is much more meaningful than that. First, history helps us understand and know our roots. Every country has its own culture, traditions, languages, and customs. By studying history, we understand where these traditions come from and how our ancestors lived. It helps us appreciate our heritage and respect our culture. Second, history teaches us valuable lessons. Throughout history, people have made both good and bad decisions. By studying their success and failures, we learn what to do and what to avoid. This helps individuals and even governments make better decisions for the future. History also helps us understand society, the government's law, education systems, and right we enjoy today did not appear overnight. They developed gradually over hundreds and thousands of years. History explains this journey and helps us understand how our modern world was created. Another important benefit of studying history is that it develops our critical thinking skills. Historians did not simply accept every story as true. They examine evidence, compare different sources, and analyze facts before reaching conclusion. As students, this teaches us to think logically and question information instead of believing everything without proof. History also inspires us through the life of great leaders, scientists, reformers, and freedom fighters. Their courage, determination, and achievements motivates us to become responsible citizens. So history is not just about learning the past, it helps us understand the present and build a better future. Sources of history. Now a question comes to our mind. If the people of the past are no longer alive, how do historians know what happened thousands of years ago? The answer is sources of history. Historical sources are the evidence that helps historians study and reconstruct the past. Without evidence, history would simply become imagination. Every historical fact must be supported by reliable sources. Historians collect information from many different places. They carefully examine each source, compare it with others, and then prepare a reliable account of history. No single source can tell the complete story. For example, a king's inscription may describe his victories, but coins, monuments, and archaeological discoveries may reveal additional fact about his kingdom. Therefore, historians always combine different types of evidence before drawing conclusions. Historical sources are mainly divided into three major categories. First, archaeological sources, which include objects discovered through excavations such as tools, pottery, coins, inscriptions, monuments, and ancient buildings. Second, literary sources, which includes books, manuscripts, religious texts, biographies, and travel accounts written by different peoples. Third, oral sources, which includes folk songs. Second, literary sources, which includes books, manuscripts, religious texts, biographies, and travel accounts written by different peoples. Third, oral sources, which includes folk songs, stories, legends, traditions, and memories that are passed from one generation to another through spoken words. These different sources work together to help historians understand the past more accurately. In the next section, we will study each of these sources in detail and discover how they reveal the fascinating story of human civilization. Archaeological sources. Let's begin with the first type of historical source. The word archaeology means the scientific study of the past by examining the physical remains left behind by ancient people. Archaeologists are experts who carefully excavate, study, and preserve these remains to understand how people lived long ago. Imagine finding an old clay pot buried underground. Although it may look like an ordinary object, it can tell us what people ate, how they cooked food, and even how advanced their society was. This is why archaeological discoveries are so valuable. Some important archaeological sources include inscriptions, monuments, coins, tools, poetry, sculptures, bones, fossils, and many more. Let's understand a few of them. First is inscriptions. Inscriptions are writings carved on stones, metal, or clay. Kings often used inscriptions to record their achievements, laws, or important events. A famous example in the edicts of Emperor Ashoka, which provide valuable information about his role and his message of peace. Another important source is monuments. Temples, forts, places, caves, and stupas help us understand the architecture, culture, religion, and lifestyle of ancient civilization. Ancient coins also reveal fascinating information. They tell us about the ruler, the economy, trade, language, and even the symbol used during the time. Objects like stone, tools, pottery, jewelry, and weapons are also called artifacts. These everyday objects help historians understand how people lived, worked, and survived. Because archaeological sources are based on physical evidence, they are considered among the most reliable sources of history. Literary sources. Now let's move to the second type of historical source. Literary sources are written records created by people in the past. They provided detailed information about politics, religion, education, culture, trade, and daily life. These include manuscripts, which were handwritten on palm leaves, birch bark, cloth, or paper before the invention of printing occurs. Another important literary source is religious texts such as Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas. These books not only explain religious beliefs but also provide information about the society and tradition of their time. We also learn a lot from the writing of travelers. For example, Chinese traveler Fa Hin and Persian scholar wrote detailed accounts of India. Their observation helps historians understand the country's culture, education, economy, and oral sources. The third category is oral sources. Long before people learned to write, knowledge was passed from one generation to another through spoken words. These oral sources include folk songs, stories, legends, myths, traditions. In today, many communities preserve their history through storytelling and folk music. These traditions help protect local culture and customs that may never have been written down. However, since oral stories can change slightly over time, historians compare them with other evidence before accepting them as historical facts. The prehistoric age. Now let's move to one of the most interesting part of this chapter, the prehistoric age. The word prehistory means before history was written. This was the period when human beings had not yet invented writing. Since there was no books or written records, historians cannot study this period through documents. So how do we know about prehistoric people? The answer is through archaeological evidence. Scientists study fossils, bones, stone, tools, cave paintings, poetry, and ancient settlements to understand how early humans lived. In fact, the prehistoric age covers more than 99% of human history, yet almost everything we know about it comes from archaeological discoveries rather than written records. To make this long period easier to understand, historians divided it into three important stages: the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. Paleolithic Age, Old Stone Age. Let's begin with the Paleolithic Age, also known as the Old Stone Age. It is the earliest and longest phase of human history. During this period, humans lived a very simple life. They did not know farming or how to build houses. Instead, they lived in caves or under natural shelters to protect themselves from wind, animals, and harsh weather. People survived mainly by hunting animals, catching fish, and gathering fruits, roots, and nuts from forests. Since food was not available in one place throughout the year, they kept moving from one area to another. This is why they called nomads. One of the greatest discoveries during this age was fire. Fire helped early humans cook food, stay warm during cold weather, protect themselves from dangerous animals, and provide light at night. They also made simple tools from stones, bones, and wood. These tools were used for hunting, cutting, and everyday survival. Although life was difficult, this period marked the beginning of human development. Next is the Mesolithic Age, Middle Stone Age. After the Paleolithic Age comes the Mesolithic Age, also known as the Middle Stone Age. During this period, humans began improving their way of life. Stone tools become smaller, sharper, and more efficient. These are called microlithics. People still hunted animals and collected food, but they also started fishing and slowly began domesticating animals such as dogs. Some communities start living in one place for longer periods instead of constantly moving. This was an important step towards settlement of life. The Mesolithic Age acted as a bridge between the hunting lifestyle of the Old Stone Age and the farming lifestyle of the New Stone Age. The Neolithic Age, New Stone Age. Now we come to one of the most important periods in human history, the Neolithic Age or the New Stone Age. This age is often called as agricultural revolution because people learned how to grow crops instead of depending only on hunting and gathering. As farming developed, people started building permanent houses and living together in villages. This marked the beginning of settled life. Humans also domesticated animals such as cow, goats, and sheep for food farming. Another important development was the use of polished stone tools, which were stronger and more effective than earlier tools. People also learned pottery making, weaving cloths, and storing food for future use. The Neolithic Age completely transformed human civilization and laid the foundation for modern society. Let's quickly revise today's lesson. History is the study of the human past based on evidence. We studied three main types of historical sources: archaeological sources, literary sources, and oral sources. We also learned about the prehistoric age, which is the period before writing was invented. Finally, we explored the three stages of the Stone Age: Paleolithic Age, hunting and gathering; Mesolithic Age, better tools and early settlements; Neolithic Age, farming, villages, and permanent homes. Before we end today's lesson, let's quickly revise the chapter with some important questions. What is the meaning of the word history? The word history comes from the Greek word historia, which means inquiry or knowledge gained through investigation. Name the three types of historical sources. The three main types of historical sources are archaeological, literary, and oral sources. What distinguished the Neolithic Age? The Neolithic Age is known for the beginning of farming, settled life, and polished stone tools and pottery. This period marked the start of permanent villages and agriculture. Why oral sources important? Oral sources preserve knowledge from period before writing existed. They include folk songs, stories, legends, and tradition passed down from one generation to another. What is the prehistoric age? The prehistoric age is the period before writing records existed. We study this period through fossils, stone, tools, cave paintings, and other archaeological artifacts. So, students, today we learned that history is much more than remembering dates and events. It helps us understand how humans evolved, how civilization developed, and how the past continues to influence our present. We explored the meaning and importance of history, studied different historical sources, and learned how early humans gradually progressed from living in caves to building villages and practicing agriculture. I hope this lesson has made the chapter easy to understand. Remember, the best way to learn history is not by memorizing facts, but by understanding the story behind them. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe to Speedo Education by Tripti for more easy and detailed educational lesson. Until next time, keep learning, stay curious and have a wonderful day.